The report is out. The rumors are out. The Marshall Faulk will end up being the next head coach at Southern University. Off script, shout out to Scotty from Off Script. He put it out there first. Then I did some digging, and then the report ended up coming out way later. But I heard that Southern officials had met with Marshall Faulk. They went up there to Boulder. Then I also got some intel that Marshall Faulk's camp came down to Baton Rouge and toured the campus, not Marshall himself, but it was a bye week for Colorado, so it makes perfect sense. We're going to dive into it, all of that after the bumper. Stay tuned. What is going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? My name is JeffLightsyJr. This is the Victory Formation Sports Show right here on JeffLightsyJr. YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your content. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, notification bell because I upload it all the time. Now, the rumors are Marshall Faulk will be the next head coach of Southern University. That will not, I believe that's going to happen. That will not become official until after the Bayou Classic. So we're talking 2 weeks away, all right? So nothing like you just going to have to sit on Scotty's reporting, sit on my reporting, because I have also heard once again that Marshall Faulk, the folks from Southern went out to Boulder over the weekend. It was a Colorado over the last week. Colorado was on a bye week for their game. No, they didn't have a game, and so people from Southern went out there to meet with Marshall. A lot of people on Southern's board of trustees, on Southern's selection committee, they are high on Faulk. They want Faulk. There is a couple of staunch supporters for getting Faulk in the building. That's why I think ultimately he will be named the head coach. They went out there to meet with him in Boulder. Then some of his people, I don't know if his agent, family, whoever, went and toured the campus of Southern. They went down to Southern, to the campus, toured the campus, got a good look at it, and I think they're coming to an agreement. Southern, just be full transparency, Southern is, from what I understand, still interviewing other coaching candidates. So he hasn't officially signed pen to paper. He hasn't officially been named the head coach. They're still technically going through the interviews this week, but I think they'll conduct those in-person interviews. And then once again, an announcement won't be made until after the Bayou Classic. I'm being told that they don't want any distractions going into the Bayou Classic against their rival, that is Grambling. And as we all know, Bayou Classic is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And so therefore, we're talking about a week and a half away still until Southern makes an announcement. And I think that announcement will be Marshall Faulk. And shout out to Scotty from Off Script from really, getting the scoop on that. Scotty's even come out and said he's got some coaching staff people that he believes will end up on Marshall Faulk's staff. So that is interesting. And I think this is the right hire. I think this is the route. Marshall Faulk, showed interest in the job 4 years ago when Dawson Odoms moved on to go to Norfolk, ironically, which is now replaced by Michael Vick. Marshall Faulk showed interest back then. I think they had a Zoom meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Back then, Marshall showed interest. Southern wanted to go in a different direction. They went with Eric Dooley, and we know how that has went on. Dooley, Graves, now they're circling the block back on Marshall, who now has official coaching experience. He's the running backs coach up at Colorado. This year, Colorado has already, and they still have a couple of games left, 300 more rushing yards this season than they had all of last season. So, take that for whatever you may. Michael Welsh, who is one of the big-time running backs there at Colorado, credits Marshall Faulk for his growth and development in his sophomore year with the Buffs. And so I think this is going to be a win. Marshall is, and for those who don't know, Marshall Faulk is a native of New Orleans. So he is from Louisiana. He obviously still knows the Louisiana area. I'd imagine he still has a ton of family in the Louisiana area. And the key of being from an area and having interest. Remember, Marshall had interest in this job 4 years ago and having interest in wanting to say, hey, I want to coach there. That is key as well, because it shows that you're going to be invested in this program. You're going to be invested in making this a success. You're going to be invested, and you already have the blueprint as far as where are the go-to high schools? Where are the go-to coaches? Who are the legends? Who are the people that I need to be connected with? And yeah, I may not. And Louisiana is talent rich. Edna Carr, Newman out of New Orleans, which is where Arch Manning went, and the Mannings went to Newman in New Orleans. Edna Carr in New Orleans is a big-time high school. It's produced a ton of Division I talent. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Marshall Faulk's not going to be able to get. I heard some people, because I was watching Scotty's live stream, I heard some people say something like, oh, he can get like Devontae Smith because he's undersized, or maybe like Jamar Chase. And these kids are from Louisiana: Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith. But let's be honest, those guys aren't going to Southern, right? Those guys aren't going to Southern unless Faulk can really persuade a kid like Prime did Travis. And I think that was just a one-of-one type of connection there. Those guys are still going to go to the Alabamas, the LSUs, etc. But there is what Jackson is doing right now. It's something Jackson is doing really, really well. Is that Louisiana is so talented that these guys go to all these different schools, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But you can then become a bounce back place, a place at home, a place with a culture, a place within HBCU culture with a guy like a Trey Holly. If it doesn't work at LSU, you go to Southern. A guy that goes to Alabama, if it doesn't work, you can go to Southern. A guy that goes to Michigan, it doesn't work, you go to Southern. Right? You have an opportunity to take advantage of the transfer portal and maybe lower level recruits that may have an offer from those places or a Power 5, a Group of 5 or whatever. But you see the writing on the wall. They're bringing in transfers. They're bringing in higher ranked recruits. They're bringing in guys that may be better than me. I have an opportunity to go to a Southern and potentially play early and then get my experience that way. And then I'm sure Marshall Faulk will have no problem helping that young man be able to go to a Power 4, Power 5, whatever conference if they decide like, hey, I decide I want to take my talent somewhere else. I've maximized what I want to do here at Southern. But in the meantime, you can still win championships, still win conference championships, still go to the Celebration Bowl and do those type of things. So I believe we're still about 2 weeks away from this being official, but I trust Scotty's report and I trust my own reporting, my own sources that say Marshall Faulk will potentially end up being the next head coach at Southern University. And I think the team's going to be better for it. I mean, you had these 2 years, over the 4 years when you didn't hire Marshall back in 2021, you've dealt with 2 years of Dooley, underwhelming, 2 years of Terrence Graves, just disappointing. And now you get a guy in a Marshall Faulk who worked with Deion at the NFL Network, who worked with Deion at Colorado, who I'm assuming is going to get all the game, get laced up on all the game from dealing with the commissioners of the SWAC, dealing with the other coaches across the SWAC, dealing with all the institutional setbacks or maybe institutional shortfalls of the SWAC of Southern. And he's not going to know the ins and outs of Southern because he coached at Jackson State, but nonetheless, he knows the ins and outs of the SWAC. He knows the shortcomings and the great things and the bad things and everything in between. And so getting laced to that game and not walking into this thing blindly is going to be critical. And with a place like Southern, you have more resources than most. With a place like Southern, you already have a rabid built-in fan base. Now, right now, they're like 50-50. I would even say 60-40. They're kind of out on this. Like, I'd say most of the Southern fan base that's commented on my post, that was in Scotty's chat, that was calling into his platform, I'd say most of them aren't really a fan of this. I know Perry has been on record saying he's not a fan of it. A bunch of guys called in and was like, we got to wait and see. They're on the wait and see approach. And I think Marshall can go in there and win over these people from the jump, from the press conference, but then immediately showing, impacting, and recruiting, going out, meeting those high school coaches, going out off, because that is, to me, is the problem they're having in Colorado. They're not going anywhere. They're not connecting locally. They're not tagging in primes like all the recruits come to me. If Marshall takes that approach, he will not succeed. If he takes the approach like all the kids got to come see me, hey, come see this gold jacket, come see what I did with the Rams, come see what I did with the Colts, come see what I did in the NFL, I'm this superstar Marshall Faulk, then kids ain't going to want to hear all that. Hey, what can you do for me in 2025? Damn what you did in the 90s and early 2000s. Damn what you did with Kurt Warner and what you did with Isaac Bruce and what you did with Torrey Holt and what you did with a young Peyton Manning. Damn all that. What can you do for me in 2025 at Southern University? How can we compete for championships? How can I get a piece of the bag when it comes to NIL? How can you help me become a better football player? How can you help me get to whatever the next level looks like, whether that's UFL, CFL, or the NFL? How can you and your staff, what does your staff look like? All of these different things are going to come into place, are going to come into question when the young man wants to speak to Marshall Faulk, because the difference between Marshall Faulk and maybe even like a Deshaun Jackson and even a Michael Vick is that Marshall Faulk, and especially a Prime, is older. He's older like Prime, not as old as Prime, but older like Prime. But the difference between Prime and Marshall Faulk was Prime was bigger than life. Prime had the bravado. Prime was can't miss. He was on reality TV. He was a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He did everything. Then he had sons that ended up being really great and personable and having the cameras follow around. That's the difference. Marshall Faulk has been relatively reserved, out of the spotlight. Yeah, he worked for NFL Network for a long time, and of course, he is the current running backs coach of Colorado. But Marshall Faulk for a long time just stayed out of the spotlight. He's not someone that garners attention regularly. And so you're going to have to make yourself bigger than life, really make yourself. That's something that Sean Jackson does really well, but I think Michael Vick is kind of struggling with, because outside of his play on the field, Michael, and then especially post getting in trouble, Michael Vick has really shied away from the spotlight. And now he's going to have to, he's getting better at it, but he's going to have to do that to go attract better talent. That is what Marshall Faulk is going to have to be able to do, to use his celebrity, use his connections, use his resources to make himself bigger, because he as a person just isn't very braggadocious, isn't very in your face. And so he has to use everything around him to go out and attract the best player. And then, of course, build a staff that can really coach up those players and make an impact potentially in year one in the SWAC. And so the reports are Marshall Faulk will be the next head coach at Southern University. I trust Scotty's report, and I trust my own report, and the announcement won't be made until after the Bayou Classic. So you still got a couple of weeks left. And then once that becomes official, we'll come on here and dissect it even more after his presser and everything. And after you guys see Pete Thamel or somebody tweeted out, because of course coming from me or Scotty is not good enough. You got to wait for Pete Thamel or ESPN or whoever to report it. But I stand on what we said. We broke I broke the Sean Jackson news. Scotty helped with that, and I trust him on this as well. After and then doing my own research, doing my own news. Yeah, I think this will end up being the case. I told you they're still talking to people. It isn't official and won't become official until after the Bayou Classic. But I think Marshall is making the calls. I think everybody wants this to go. I don't think they do this a second time if they're not going to go get him this time, especially since he has that Division I collegiate coaching experience. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Marshall Faulk, I believe, will be the next head coach of Southern University. How do you think he'll do? What it will be like? Let me know down below. Once again, my name is JeffLightsYJr. This is the Victor Formation Sports Show right here on JeffLightsYJr, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you content. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, notification bell, because I upload all the time. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Peace.